the worst of all, speaking of moving away from locations, is people think they can do everything CGI. Oh yeah, well we'll do this, and it's all special effects. And it's like, you hear that. I think you probably hear it more on, an unfunded set rather than people who know what they're at and hear, oh yeah, that can be fixed in post.
In the room, 52 Jokers Wild.
Welcome everybody to the show, In the Room with 52 Jokers Wild. This week our guest is actor Gerry Cannon. Hello, Gerry, and welcome to our little show. We've been having the pre-ramble there was quite interesting because we were talking about Vikings. We were talking about some interesting little backstories between you and Garvin, which we must investigate a little bit more as well. So tell us a little bit about, actually, let's go straight into that with a Garvin connection. That'd be quite interesting. What's your connection with Garvin?
This will be frightening.
Well, are you still on parole or am I on parole? I mean, that's what we've done.
So, Garvin, are you still on parole?
Parole? No, again, from school. I think Gerry just threw in, brought up the past, and that's not something which is good to me at the best of times, because I can't remember yesterday. But I mean, to go back to, let's see, if I'm 54-ish and school, we're going back 40 years. I was in Oaklands College for about 12 years, primary and secondary, jail. It was, admittedly, what I do remember of going into the secondary in Oaklands College was I was 6'3" at 13 years of age. We went in, and all the first years were getting beaten up and pushed around by the 6th years and 5th years. And I was on their side pushing around the first years. Actually, most of the teachers thought I was a trainee teacher. I had my little tash. My voice was breaking. I was 6'3" with a monobrow, and I was just in first year in secondary school in Oaklands. That's my first memory of that place. And I was beating up the young lads with the big lads. So, Gerry, do you remember anything about that place?
I wasn't there that year, luckily. No, I was slightly ahead. But anyway, but speaking of acting, actually, I mean, I only returned to acting as a full-time career in 2016. But,
all right.
Sometimes I was only thinking about this earlier. Sometimes people ask me, why did you do it? Or how come you changed from, having your own business or working in a job, whatever it was. And I remember, it's probably something I always wanted to do. And I was quite good at impersonating the teachers and the other students as well. But when we were doing our Leaving Cert, we were doing the Peg Sayers.
Are you talking about that?
No, I was having a nightmare there for a sec. Sorry. Playboy of the Western World was the play.
Right. That's not as bad as Peg Sayers, I'll tell you that much.
I know.
Someone should have gone back in time and shot that woman because she was the pain of every little Irish boy on the planet. I couldn't even read that book in English. Sorry, back to the Playboy. Playboy of the Western World. That could be me as well.
We were doing that. And anyway, there was Great Hall, as you know, in the primary school, which was never utilised, but down the road, RTE still had the RTE players. So they came along and they were obviously doing, school's production, touring around the place. So they did the Playboy of the Western World. And actually a few of the actors that were there would have been in the Reardons, which was, the farming soap way before Glenroe. And I used to, instead of studying...
I remember is Land and Larder, for goodness sake. That's what we had in Northern Ireland. I used to reading all the character parts out loud rather than doing my homework. But we had a library, which was an old classroom. I think it was a science lab with a few career guidance leaflets. And I picked up one of these blue leaflets and acting was on it. And the place you could go to become an actor was the Abbey School of Acting. So I sent them off a nice letter, threatened to send them a tape on a cassette if they'd like it as well. And I never heard back. And then about maybe 3 or 4 years after I'd left school, I was reading an article one day and discovered that the Abbey School of Acting had closed down about 8 years beforehand. So it didn't get off to a great start anyway. I had a similar sort of story because I actually, when I was at college doing arts, I decided to do an acting drama class in the evening, and we ended up doing puppeteering and stuff like that. And it had one class, but because there's only 6 of us there, they cancelled the class. And I went, oh, for goodness sake. They said, well, you can always come back next year. I said, I'm off to Bournemouth to film school, so I can't do that.
A better plan.
No, actually, you just reminded me of the one piece of career guidance I got in Oaklands College. And I'll remember the teacher's name in a minute, or basically I better not. But I remember getting my 5 minutes. I think every student got 5 or 10 minutes with this chap. Now this wasn't your career guidance course, or you go in and got like every other week and you talked and discussed. You got 10 to 15 minutes before you left the school. And my 10 minutes was, "Oh, Begorra, aren't you very tall?" Now, we started off with that. He says, "Do you play basketball?" "No, I didn't. You didn't notice me on the GA pitch or out there in the basketball court. So, no, that one's off the career. NBA is out of the career path." So he says, "Well, you're not too bad looking. Maybe you could be a model." And I says, "Right." I'm walking out of there with a smile on my face going, "Yeah, I'm a good looking chap. I'm tall. I'm off for my modeling career. I can give up the maths and physics now. We'll see how that goes." But, Jesus, 6 years later, didn't I get picked up as a model? And it was the only bit of career guidance I could actually see that actually worked. But I didn't go look. It came and sought me out. Now, I had no muscles. I didn't pursue it. I hadn't got the right ego at the time. But it was a self-fulfilling prophecy of career guidance. And I take it for what it was. I was meant to be a model, at least for 10 minutes in my life. I've done that 10 minutes of fame. I'm owed another 5. That's what this is all about. So it turns out I'm not meant to be the 18-year-old, 25-year-old model. I think I'm meant to be the 56-year-old model.
That means I now need to cut down 106 shows down to 5 minutes. For goodness sake, we've overdone it a little bit there now, haven't we? We've given you definitely about 106 hours worth of time.
The one thing that's common here, George, is we went off and we did stuff for 30 years. And you just touched on it again, Gerry, that what we were saying, our journey for the last couple of years has been, the 52 Jokers Wild journey is about changing that, the deck of cards, the hand we were dealt, and picking the career we want or where in that career, as opposed to just letting someone else decide and deal us the deck. So you've swapped careers. You've done something else. Don't know what that was. You did acting, didn't see anything you were in. Maybe we did. But where you're going, it's more about the now and the future. So you've played a couple of hairy Vikings. What's the plan? Who do you plan to be next?
Who do I plan? Well, I plan to be me. Because, this is what I'm told. Casting directors, they don't want someone else. They want you. Yes. So I'm beginning to get the confidence to be me.
A bald doctor. Is that what you're told? So you told us a minute ago, you're stereotyped a little bit as, actually, they don't want you, you said. They want your voice. They says that they're not too sure about the you, but the voice is doing great by itself. Can we bring the rest of the bodily parts along with it, do you reckon?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Not a bother.
Well, I do think it's interesting because we were talking to another actor the other day, and he was saying, and what Garvin has been talking about seems to echo what our guest said the other day, was that quite often you end up spending the first 20 minutes on their misconceptions of who you are. They don't give you, they come with all these biases, whereas now it's kind of, let's get in there and talk about who we are and where we are and what we do, as opposed to what we look like at this particular point in time. Let's get into the psyche of the person. I think that's the important thing that we're doing. So how are you trying to be you?
How am I trying to be me? Well, there you go. It's my interpretation, etc. But I suppose I did train for the theatre at one stage. So in about 1979, 80 or thereabouts, I did find a theatre school, and it was in Dublin, run by a fellow called Brendan Smith. And that man had founded the Dublin Theatre Festival back in the day. He also ran the Olympia Theatre for many years, struggling along. This is before they ever had, music gigs or anything there.
I was just going to say, before Boyzone and Westlife made an appearance there.
Exactly. before boy bands, full stop. So anyway, I went there, and then I went on to the College of Music, and when we were there, we were studying for the London Guildhall exam. So the examiners would come over, and we would actually do, either monologues, duologues, etc., and they would assess us. So the ultimate aim of that was that you would become a drama teacher, but I didn't have any interest in that either. And a lot of my contemporaries did go on and take up full-time theatre careers as they were. But when I did come back to acting in end of 2015-16, screen acting was there full-time, which hadn't really existed previously when I was, was going to be a stage actor. And anyway, so I did various workshops, went to Bow Street, went to Film Base when it was still there. And the difference is, when you see your face on a screen, you kind of go, oh, Jesus, Why don't I look like George Clooney, that pink-headed yoke that's bald, you know?
No. When I see my face on the screen, I have no problem with that. I was going, Jesus, wouldn't George Clooney love to be looking at that now? That's like he's jealous. I think you need to have the ego. Otherwise, you'll be starstruck, and therefore you're not going to be able to be this better you or new you or dressed up you. So because I think that's what most people, they're afraid of being themselves on the real self.
Yeah.
You know. So no, actually, the one thing.
I know that I was on an extra on a film a few years back. I'd just gone over to monitor what was happening on the film. They said, do you want to be in this? And one of the things that I started to realize was, well, I don't need to act anybody else. What I need to do is I need to find what is my goal here? What am I trying to achieve and how do I achieve it? And I've been given these scripts and I thought, well, I just need to go out and say, look, do you want a script? Do you want a script? That was my goal. Hand out all the scripts during this particular shot. And I think that's it. As long as you're not trying to play somebody, but be something is the key to the whole thing. Because we were actually talking to, again, our colleague the other day, and he started talking about method acting. I wasn't talking about method acting. I was just talking about the method or the approach you use to act was really what I was trying to get to. Because I know that everybody kind of feels, oh, you have to get into this character and you have to absorb him. And you kind of go, God, what a waste of energy. Laurence Olivier said, why don't you just act, darling? And I think that's the key thing. It's how do you approach then your acting technique? What's your acting technique? How do you approach roles?
Well, I suppose from a screen point of view, what I've had to learn is that you don't have all this stuff going on. It's really, you know, what you're thinking. It's you know, if I met you in the street and I knew you and I had said to you something like, oh, George, there you are. I didn't think you were going to be in town today. And you're going, oh, well, boom. And you start to tell me, and I'm looking at your eyes and your body language and your face, and I know you're actually telling me lies, but you're not acting. But
I'm nearly asking what the previous career was now. So were you a guard? Were you a detective now? Or should we even be mentioning it now on the show? I don't even know.
Yeah, we can come back to that. Yeah,
military intelligence. That's what he is.
He's a psychologist. Your behavior analyst.
You see, that's fascinating.
So, but the point is that I mean that's real life. So when you're on screen, it has to look like it is real life. Like if we go into a theater, which I was performing in last week in Smock Alley, you know, we know the set that's on stage is not a pub. It's supposed to be a pub. It's not a real pub. And, you know, there's a different technique. The people buy into the, shall we say, the illusion from the get-go. So then they just focus on what's been said, who's looking at who, how it's happening. And there's a slightly different technique because we don't have editors. We don't have cameras to get, you know, close up, extreme close up. We don't have over the shoulder shots. We don't have wide shots. We don't have sound effects. We don't have atmosphere, all this stuff that's added in. You know, you can only achieve a certain amount of that on stage unless you...
Actually, I like what you're saying, Gerry, because I wasn't listening to most of it, but some of it, I like what you were saying. Because now you were talking about acting, but actually what I was hearing was you were actually very, very aware of, you know, you're talking about the camera positions, you were talking about the lighting, you were talking about what everyone else on set was doing. You know, you zoom in, zoom out. So you were talking the language of film set. You were talking the language of crew. You were talking the language of positioning. And, you know, then you're actually jumping back into the position of being the actor, delivering your line and delivering that believability of whatever the story is to get across. So I was actually imagining all of that. While now, I know you weren't saying any of it. I was actually on a set. I was thinking the crew was moving around. The camera just zoomed in. Brilliant. Yep. Now, that says to me, you've gone beyond acting. Are you a bit of a writer, director, producer in the making? I'm not too sure because I didn't look at your profile at all. Or are you just an actor?
No, primarily I'm an actor. And that's what I know that I'm good at, or that's what I can do. So acting, including voiceover work. But I am veering towards producing.
Aspiring.
Because I'm not a writer and I'm not a director. I was fortunate, just timing-wise, when I did decide to take up screen acting. Locally, there was a filmmaking group that was formed in Bray, and I was one of the founder members. And we churned
That's very handy. So, look, you were saying you were lucky to be there. Sorry, Gerry. Yes, you were the first person there, for God's sake. You founded it. Then you grabbed the next person to walk by and said, now we're a group. So, yes. I mean, if you're a founding member, you weren't just lucky to be there. You did it. You made it happen.
Well, I think there was 8 of us there for the first meeting. Right, it started off when the bloke put out.
That's a pub. We know it, you know. That was a real pub with drink involved.
Funny enough, there was a pub involved, yeah. And then the weekly meetings were every fortnight in a bar in the main street in Bray.
So the excuse to the missuses and wives was we're going to the drama class in the pub 6 rounds in. You know.
Well, the other thing is how you formed a group and you got this group going. I know we've done something similar because we had little film festivals and we tried to get a script going, but because there were so many voices going in, it actually never got anywhere. So did you find you had the same problem with that particular group, or where did it go?
Well, what happened in this case was it was just because it started off with a small number. Nearly I was probably the only person who arrived and said, I'm one of 2 that was the full-time actor, but we had someone who had experience on camera and also worked on set, somebody who had done sound work. We had a few writers.
You have a production company going on here. Hold on a second.
Well, anyway, we'll leading on from that, actually. Okay, so as a result of working with a few of these people, then another few of us decided to move on because we wanted to kind of legitimize it a bit. Insurance actually was a big issue. Yes. I mean, we were going out there doing short films, guerrilla style, and we were just pushing our luck. I thought so. I said, we need to get insured. We need to get a bit of a structure. But some people wanted to just stay where they were. They were quite happy in that little comfort zone, and we moved on. So
I love the language. Gerry, you've touched on a bunch of our. No, you said you watched a couple of minutes of a couple of shows. You certainly didn't go back to the first 50 or 60. And those ones are that sort of language here. We're talking about the fear of risk of insurance and all that sort of stuff comes up there as we went on our startup journey. And it was this formalization, being formal about being in the film business, a business of film. And if you are, and you've touched on the biggest fear, compliance, regulatory. Yeah. Your permission is that to do it and not get sued or insurance, and that's
what I did. 16 years ago or so, we basically set up a little company. We got the insurance, and that gave us the freedom to go out there and do stuff. Because even if you're teaching filmmaking, one of the problems that we had with trying to teach students was the fact that if you needed to make sure the insurance was there for when they went out. And if the lecturer couldn't be with them, who was there guiding them through the process? Because we had some lads going off and thinking they could jump off buildings and all sorts of things. We're kind of going, you misfall and break your leg, who's going to get sued and who's going to pay for that bill? Actually,
George, there's 2 words I just heard in that sentence, and it's mad. It's the first time I've actually heard it and perceived it in that way.
My God, you were listening.
I know, it's terrible. And it's weird as an accountant. Insurance is freedom. That is a weird statement. I was going risk, compliance, regulatory, cost. No, insurance is freedom. And if you perceive it that way, it allows you to go off and do the value. If you do the risk and compliance and all the rest of that, and the admin is to bring that figure down to make that freedom more. And that. So you got your insurance.
I mean, one of the other things that we were constantly doing was risk assessment, and everybody's kind of, why you have to do risk assessment? We kind of went, well, actually, if we've done the risk assessment, again, we've got a certain amount of freedom because we've done that bit of compliance, and all of a sudden we could start to structure our films, and that helped as well. So some of these things that you think are going to be constraints end up being liberating techniques for you. And quite often I found that with the films that we've made is that when it's really funny that you never have any money when you're making a movie and it's almost as though it's a test to see if you can actually get that done. And we always did, because we'd set up enough procedures to make sure that those films could actually be achieved. And I think that's a key part of actually producing something. Is that
Gerry,
what you found in your
got your freedom? Exactly. You got your freedom. You paid your insurance. What did you do?
Well, in my case, what we did was I set up another little entity called Son of a Gun Films. So basically, when we, as in, I'm a son of a big gun, actually. So having met lots of people in this other film group, basically, from the producing point of view, it's a matter of organizing, managing. I'm not letting this one go for a second. Son of a gun, all I'm hearing is you're a cowboy.
You're going, and that's back to, did you pay the insurance? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So no, but so a skill that I have, I can kind of organize events. This is, other things I've done along in my life, which I won't go into now because it's going to go off on a complete mad tangent.
We're not going to let you. Don't worry.
No, that's okay.
But anyway, so that is a skill that I have. So I can get people who are writers, but wouldn't have the wherewithal themselves to even attempt to assemble a crew of people, and it's a script worth making, or might have a director. That's what they want to do. They don't want to, have to ring up somebody to get a location. I'm always thinking, okay, well, where could we get for free that looks really good, that would make this thing pop? Not just trying to do something.
You are a producer, line manager, production, location specialist. The guy, you are the holistic end to end. The strange thing is, you think you're an actor. No, that's allowed you in. You can perform. You have a little bit of the ego there. I want to be seen. I want to be on the front. I want to be in front of the camera on the stage. But everything I've heard since the beginning of this show is your skill set from whatever you did before. Well, it's the project management, production to get stuff made.
You were talking about you're talking about the writers and not knowing, and then you were talking about the location side of things and going off and finding it. Did you ever struggle with writers who basically were so precious with what the locations would be, or how would you encourage them to think about a location that they hadn't had in mind, but you saw could actually make that film pop?
Well, I suppose the few writers that I knew that I dealt with were flexible, but I think sometimes, I've probably made about 40 short films, I've been in about 40 short films. So some of them never seen the light of day, 30 plus probably have, but I've also got lots of scripts, say, from students, or even not even particularly student filmmakers, but, first time. And I think what it is sometimes that they have this ambition, like they're watching, Netflix and Amazon Prime and everything. Or the worst of all, moving away from locations, is people think they can do everything CGI. Oh yeah, well, we'll do this and it's all special effects. And it's like, you hear that. I think you probably hear it more on, an unfunded set rather than people who know what they're at in here. Oh yeah, that can be fixed in post. Says, Mrs. Wardrobe, or
can I use your cannon to blast them out there?
Because who knows nothing about it, absolutely can't. If the sound is shite in the very beginning, you're banjoed, and if you can't.
Well, I had a situation with someone where I was editing a project. We'd edited 2 documentaries, and the first one went out and it won the award. The second one went out, and I got a phone call from the producer that hadn't been there, complaining about the way I'd edited it. And I said, but you used a student to do your sound. What was I meant to do? How could I improve the sound? I had what you had, and we had a deadline, and, that wasn't my fault. That was the way you guys recorded the sound on set. That was the big problem.
Actually, Gerry, I'm going to pick up on I'm learning, I'm listening. I got a bit. The silence is deadening on my side, trust me. I'm not hearing my own voice. But you mentioned 30. You've done 30 or 40 shorts. That's brilliant. And is this in the same time, only since you started? So you're picking up every short in the market. Actually, everybody should have seen you by now. Well, in the middle indie curve in Ireland, they certainly have, and you're well connected. And because you've been on every short going and every aspirational short to feature journey, you're making the connections with all those other breakout people, which is brilliant. That's why the names are starting to pop up on Facebook where the dots are joining, and that makes sense. Now, at the same time, if you're there with these small, unbudgeted and somewhat budgeted crews, because shorts by their very nature are nearly that unfunded territory or not enough funded territory, what's the elephant in the room you're coming across on a regular basis that needs to be helped or needs to be pushed along or needs to be trained or brought to bear that would make things easier or better for that bunch of people and or yourself? Or that's about 7 questions. Off you go.
Well, there's so many aspects that I think, from my own point of view, I think you have to approach something in a professional manner. So kind of
that's us over already. Sorry, Gerry, I'll just leave now.
Yeah. So, kind of my mantra will be to be professional, be pleasant, and be persistent, So, therefore, when you make a connection with other people on a set, very likely there's that like-minded thing, and you'll get asked back again. But speaking of production things, there's a feature film going to be made in March called Dublin Crust, written by a guy called Baz Black.
Oh, right. Yep.
Very good. Very interested in that now.
I have a part in that, but I'm also involved in the production end of it. And that's currently going down the fundraising route, an Indiegogo page. So you can check all that out on Facebook as well.
Oh, we know more than that, George, don't we?
We were talking to Baz the other day.
There you go.
We got some insights about that one. Watch the show tomorrow. Well, actually, the show that's going out tomorrow is actually Baz.
Well, there you are.
Small world.
Indeed. Yeah, I met Baz. We were working on a kind of a comedy web thing together. And then like that, he was making something else. He invited me on board. And then he offered me a part in Dublin Crust. And then also in the meantime, he has quite a big cast involved. So
cast of thousands, costumes, CGI, big budget, big bang for buck. No problem.
I would have helped him cast some of those roles. I think at least 3 so far have made suggestions. Those people have taken, and they've got the role based on their tape, not just because I said it. So, so I'm actively involved in that, and will be thrown whatever experience I have in networking into that, because
you're vested, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, it's like all the little parts. I want to be good as well. I mean, there's nothing worse than being in a feature, not to mind a short, where you go and see the end product and you say, if only they had done this.
Yeah.
Why couldn't they have got a location here? But what happened is, in a lot of those cases, it was the director's vision to make his or her short or feature. They may have written it. That may have been the driving thing, but they didn't have all the other skills, and they didn't get enough of the right people on board for free, or for deferred payment, or for a small payment, or whatever.
It's brilliant, Gerry. I think it's because we're late bloomers, late starters, and you're entering, and George, no, he's there for 30 years.
I've been
here.
We're
entering from a different field of, let's say, business and process and planning, and you're, even though you're there under the one role of actor, you're noticing all this other you're bringing your business acumen of 30 years of experience of other types of functions that relate to what's going on the project at hand. And you're noticing where you could have got a bit more bang for buck. You could have saved a bit of cost over there. You could leverage this and do that, and a process or automate the other. And therefore, that's why I think you can nearly not help yourself move from actor into the production sphere, because you can see where you can make a difference and bring more value.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is a bit like the work that I want to do is, I want to do the best quality work I can do, but I also want to do that if I'm not fine. Like, for instance, I got a role last October in Valhalla, the follow-on to Vikings. It'll be screened, I suppose, February, March. And the Bishop of London. I was probably not supposed to even say that. I think I signed a 30-page non-disclosure agreement. But anyway, so I got my
Don't
day.
Don't worry, our audience in the billions won't even mention it.
So I got my day on set in October, and then it's go back in June of this year for another scene as well. But, if you're not lucky enough to get cast in something where all that's already in place. Another great project I was involved in last year, it was a short film called Acheron. And the director, Tommy Cray, who had won an award for a previous short film, Land of Winter, he approached myself and he said, I'm going to do this double-handed short film. And what I'd like to do for a change, he says, I want to develop it with the 2 actors. So this was early last year, just before COVID, but as it happened. So myself, Killian, the other actor, and Tommy had various Zoom calls, and we do a read through. And then Killian in particular would make suggestions, Tommy would make it, and they kept refining the script. So we ended up shooting it in September. So we actually had rehearsals beforehand, which is extremely rare. And then one of the locations we were using for the outdoor shoot was at the Broadmeadow Estuary in Malahide. So there was going to be a full day of like 4 different parts along that estuary. And I said, okay, well, we're going to go out and we're going to walk through the whole thing and do all that, so we're not arriving on the day and spend 2 hours at one place, and we've already an hour and a half behind. Anyway, long story short, it's got a festival run recently. Its next stop is the Richard Harris Film Festival, But it was also, Tommy picked up Best Director Award in Birmingham for it, and I was nominated for Best Actor Award in October at the Dublin International Short Film and Music Festival, and I got the award, which is my first.
Your first Oscar. Brilliant.
That was all to do with what we put in beforehand. It wouldn't have happened. Yeah. And I was being me. I was being this other character's father. He's a playwright. I think he should get a proper job. Staying in bed until 11 o'clock is just not on. So,
brilliant.
That's the direction.
So you've
yeah, sorry, I was just thinking there that one of the things that I was learning from this counseling course that I've been doing was basically once you get inside the head of the other person and start to work with them, which is what you're doing with that little jaunt along the riverbank or whatever, was basically you're actually discovering what the character's wants and needs are. And I know that in one of the movies I did, we had the cast all together, and I actually talked to the characters, not the cast, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to know how did they feel about the situations they were finding themselves within the story. And that kind of worked through and helped to build up the characters when we went to actually do the shoot, which I think is a fabulous way of kind of working with things, So what's your next project? A personal project as opposed to the commercial side of things?
Personal project. Well, the big one will be Dublin Crust. I mean, things evolve all the time. I mean, like Friday morning, I got a call, could I come down and do a demo tape for, an upcoming TV drama, just a few lines for particular things.
Have you got an age? I mean, there's an interesting thing.
Yeah, I do.
I got a call as opposed to you're sending 50 voiceovers out there and nobody's ringing. No one's ringing back. They're inundated with 50 million people in the queue. You got a call. Now, that's based on 30 shorts just gone in. You're recognized, your name's out there, or your talent. But I mean, how does it feel when you don't get a call, or how many calls are you not getting in terms of how many feelers you put out?
Well, in terms of voiceover work, I mean, that's kind of an avenue I went down myself. And in particular, the guy who gave me the call is Killian Fitzgerald, who runs Avatar post-production. And aside from being, virtually a neighbour of mine down the road here, I had worked...
Comes in handy, that network over the head.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, I only met him a few years ago. We have a connection through sailing as well. We're both members in Greystone Sailing Club.
You pulled him out of the waters in that Viking wig in Valhalla. Yes.
Yeah. Well, what happened was I had actually done some character voices for the Irish Revolution TV series. So Killian actually had recorded that. We were in Highwire Studio in town. So any opportunity, in fairness to him, if he thinks I can do it, he'll give me a shout. So, and likewise, speaking of Baz Black, Baz had a short film called Mero, which picked up a lot of awards. I did the narration on that, and we recorded down in Killian's studio. So, I got Killian the job, Baz got me to do it, and so on and so forth.
In some ways I like what's going on. In other ways I'm going, how do I get a job? Everyone else is on the outside of this loop. They're all it's a feeding frenzy of keep it inside the loop, keep it inside the network. But at the same time, that's what we're saying out there. Get the network to get work.
It's not an exclusive thing. It's
Yeah, no.
That sounds very exclusive to me. Over the hedge, down the sailing club. You have to bring your own Viking helmet.
Yeah, you find the connections that basically
bring the
talent, bring the for you. I think that's
one thing leads to another. I mean, the reason I ended up, working for a few weeks here and there in 2016 and 17 as part of the Marine crew in Vikings was because I am a sailing instructor as well. Yeah. So all those people that are, recruited by the Marine coordinator to do that work, either are sailing instructors or they work in the lifeboat or they have some...
I wasn't listening. Sorry, is that Holt or is that the Dunleary one or Malahide or which sailing club is that?
Yeah, the one I'm in is in Greystones.
Greystone.
But I also teach sailing, and I do that in Dunleary. So you have to have a couple of irons in the fire. So
Well, I think that's the key thing we've been saying to a lot of people, especially students, is that when they get their passion, you kind of have to say to them, but you need to generate an income to sustain yourself. And some of the guests that we've had, have been builders, and they've been able to pick up the the skills that they did in building, they've been able to transfer to the filmmaking process, which I think is working really well. Now, during the conversation there, Garvin asked you the question, did you have an agent? And you did say yes. Tell us a little bit more about how that helps you with your career, having an agent, and how difficult was it getting an agent?
It is very difficult because, I mean, there are, I had no idea. I thought, actor numbers were probably in the low hundreds, but it's only when you look through Facebook groups, whether they're Film Network Ireland or any of them, and you realize, the amount of people there are. I mean, the amount of actors are actually thousands, but there's probably less than 20 active agents in Ireland, because up to more recently, especially with film work, I mean, the work is just not there. What I did was I was lucky enough. I got a show reel together quick enough because of my filmmaking thing, and got a CV, sent it out. Had no luck for about 6 months. Met one particular agent. He's going to take me on, and then he realised no, it wasn't going to work. He specialises in Gavin's career, modelling, actually. But anyway, so Annette,
give him my number. I'll be back.
And Annette,
he thought you were a bit taller. He mistook you for me. That's what it was.
That was it. I forgot to wear the platforms when I was going in. But anyway, I got an agent. So the difference, I suppose, is that you get to hear about a lot of the jobs that don't necessarily get put up there, say on Fish Pond or things like that. So if there is an upcoming TV drama and they're looking for, say, they've cast the main role, so they're looking for all the minor roles after that, you'll hear about it. You'll get the opportunity to self-tape. So if you're unrepresented, you don't get access to that info unless they throw it out deliberately into the public domain or onto, some other platform that actors use. So you do get that kind of head start. I know in my own case, the agent, Annette, I mean, she's always looking through Spotlight as well. And if there's something that requires Irish people or maybe getting shot here, she'll, pop us through for that. I mean,
no, that's an interesting thing right there. I'm going to jump in. Irish people. So you do the voiceovers. Can you do the American accent, the Australian accent? Are you an Irish person, Caucasian, Irish Paddy? That's what you're going to be typecast as? Or I know you said you're going to be on this other program that sounds a bit English. Can you neutralize to an American accent to get more parts?
Yeah, well, what you do is, I mean, in terms of accents, you'd see they might look for what's called like a general American accent or a standard English accent. And you can go on a course, there's a great voice coach called Gerry Cannon who runs courses at Bow Street, and that will give you what's required. So if an American production is coming over here and they want a taxi driver, but you have to have a general American accent, you need to nail that so that you're believable. It doesn't have to be a Bronx accent. It doesn't have to be from Pennsylvania or whatever. It's just general American. So in other words, as you are delivering those couple of lines, you don't throw in a couple of Irish vowel sounds in there that gives the game away.
Because we had that problem that we had an American character in one of the films I made, and we got somebody from Dundalk who was from New York to voice over the ADR, the character, but none of the Americans believed it because he'd been here so long. He had the Irish twang to his American accent, and that was the problem that we had.
Yeah,
and that was a comment that came back from America. So yeah, it's how do you get rid of the Irish twang if you're trying to put on an American accent?
Well, it's not that you get rid of it, but you substitute, like, instead of like if we're kind of asking, if I say I'm thinking, like the thinking vowel in Irish, it's M. In America, it's in England is it's as simple as that, but just that kind of neutral vowel. And
I think on Sesame Street it's manamana. Do. Can't help myself, Gerry. No, the great thing is I've heard you're invested. See, that's the thing, is you're asked, people have to invest in themselves. If they want to put the right voice in for the pitch or the reel, they nearly have to get the voice coach for the couple of hours. That could be, I don't know, 100 quid, like to get that even 2 lines in, or there's no point in putting in the pitch. If you nearly know it's a no before you start, because you have the Irism versus the Americanism. You've invested in yourself. I heard all the courses, all the study, all the rest. Do you feel there's an awful lot of people out there that aren't investing in themselves enough and expect it's unrealistic expectations, maybe?
I think if you're starting out, it doesn't matter what age you are, but if you're emerging along the way, you need to get either on stage or on set experience, but you also need to train. It doesn't mean that you have to go and do, a full-time 2-year drama course, in a fancy college, but you do need to invest in training. And like a mantra that I would have also is, I believe in lifelong learning. I didn't go to university, which was not uncommon. When I left school, probably only a third of the year would. There was no necessity for
Sorry, Gerry, that was me. I took every route to stay in university. My grandparents were sitting beside the fire going, how many years are you in there now? When are you going to go to work? Well, I was like 7-8 years in university. I kept on doing more courses because I said outside of university was work and responsibility. So I kept on going back. So I was the third, I think it's TURD as opposed to the THIRD, that went to university. But you did the better route, in my opinion. You went to real life work, and I didn't know what to do when I got out of university. Still don't.
But funny enough, when I did leave school, I ended up sort of doing lots of courses, like I worked, telecoms technician. So I had to go and do all those city and guilds exams. Then at one stage I decided I wanted to be, get out of where I was and be a manager. So, I did a degree with the IPA, Institute of Public Administration and Public Management. And, I learned to become a sailing instructor when I was age 50, for instance. I knew how to sail. I want to be able to teach other people, but I also wanted the qualifications. So I think if you're an actor and you think you're starting off and you think, that's great, I'll just be, Mr. Macho Man, action, I can do karate and whatever.
Hence Vikings.
But if you want to get cast in an American show, unless you can do, a sound American accent for a start, that's aside from any other acting skills. And I've come across a lot of people, along the way, and you can say their attitude, right, they are not going to progress much beyond this level. It's something to do with comparing them to me. I'm just looking at them and saying, no, they're not open enough to improving their skill, getting techniques, working with people who teach them something. So that's the level they're going to be at. Whereas in my case, I want to achieve as high as I can. I know I have a potential to do so, and then again, like, it's such a strange thing, acting. I mean, you're putting yourself up to be shot down. I mean, even when we used to go for auditions directly, oh, holy God.
Stop me this time, Gavin, stop me.
Well, wasn't me.
I thought I had that on silent. And I know, looking at that number, that's one of these stupid prank call things, where they put up an Irish mobile number, and it's...
that's it. That Nigerian prince again, and he's got your gold. He wants to give it to you.
I know.
I love the joke, though, where they have this guy and he's in a room full of gold and jewels, and he's going, I can't give it away. No one will take my call. I won't even take a call from the bank anymore. The real bank. No. I go, no, don't believe you.
That's it.
That's the fear out there. No, I mean, there's a scam at the moment. That Bank of Ireland, their texts are coming in on your own. The one from them was the one before in the text stream.
Yeah.
The next one is looking for your details. And I know older people are going to look at it and they're going to press the button because the last one was okay and the next one isn't. There's fear out there. No, it's also a fear of being, done. I'm afraid to be an actor. That's one thing, like, over the years, I'd love to be on, I don't say stage, because I wouldn't like to be in front of people in a stage, put myself out there for the hecklers. But in a controlled environment that you can do it again, maybe I could be weaned in somehow. But like you said, I have unrealistic expectations. I think I'm going to be
I think you just have to jump into the deep end.
But I might get on one of those.
That's what you have to do.
I think with your connections, I might be in the background of the next 50 shorts somewhere.
Definitely keep you in mind. Yeah,
he'll be the pillar that stands in there.
The problem you're going to have is I won't be in view because all the panning of the cameras will have to be panning along and then jump up and go down because everyone else is about 5'5" to 5'10". I'm 6'6". So if I'm not sitting down in a pub scene, you're going to be in trouble. Or I could be a big Viking. I don't know. I think I'm actually aspiring now, because I saw you with the beard and the hair. I'm going, I need to go to Valhalla. I need to be on Vikings only to get the wig and the hairdo.
Oh, yeah.
Because I miss it.
Free wig. Sure, why wouldn't you? Yeah.
Now, there's a great one out there called Quiff & Co., where you get this full quiff, and I think it's American. You can get they can give you a brand new set of hair. And I'm going, would that make, no, there's the thing. Would it make you a different person? If you had a bunch of hair there, are you younger all of a sudden? Do you feel more empowered? Do you see what is in this ball? You know, you get the liquid you put in your head. It's make your hair grow.
It doesn't work that way.
Can you see the draw?
Well, I'll tell you what works actually is a great costume. And a uniform is a thing that, I actually look quite well in a military uniform. It's very impressive looking here. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. You get the opportunity to get, to something you wouldn't do for yourself. It's like you can't put a uniform on just unless it's fucking Halloween or a fancy dress. But you're going to be as you said, part of I don't know whether we should mention it again, but you could be a bishop. You could be something else. But that's full regatta. You're there in full purple or red. I don't know what the color is, and you're going. That was a position of power.
Yeah,
it's probably gold at the moment, and soon it's going to be green again.
No, it's going back to Renaissance or Reformation time.
Actually, it's purple at the moment. It's purple at the moment.
Purple and red. Yeah,
purple because we're in Advent.
Well, I think that's the thing. Go back to the particularly in short films, because people who act for screen, like the bread and butter stuff, the things that you can do to practice your craft without getting paid for it. The things that you want to do to add to your show reel. One of the areas that certainly lets down a production, and people often don't think of it, you need to get somebody, if they're not a qualified,
hairdresser,
art director, you need to get somebody who does an
production designer,
production designer. So, in terms of just the props and the costumes, all of that little detail just adds so much to what's going on, there's no point in 4 people turning up who've brought their own costume and someone else just not blending in there at all. It's like they're like they're in a different film because there's nobody there to say otherwise. And sometimes you have your emerging director, cinematographer, and they're just so concerned with setting up this. Hold on there now a minute and look at this here, and the dog could be there beside me, and that. Yeah. It's all about, the light. Oh, Jesus, there's a bit of flare there. Hold on now. Oh, could we have a light over here? And the whole purpose.
I'm already going to get on with it. It is indie production. You're going, great if that's, as I said, the art and the director, and if you're in indie production, you're nearly slapping him in the head and pushing him out there going, there's no time for any of that. We need to be 3 scenes.
Well, I do think
minutes.
We've actually discussed that, Garvin, that basically those concepts, are actually as important as everything else.
Oh, no, production design, yes.
Yeah. Because it's the color scheme of things. So if you if you're going to have a bookshelf in the background, maybe if you've got all red books in there or something, there's a message that's being put across, which it becomes important. Then the likes of the light shade needs to be red as well, and the curtains. There's a color blend that you're looking at.
Are you trying to create a boudoir behind poor Gerry here now?
Yeah, I'm describing it. Yeah, absolutely. No, I've been looking at a lot of films, and I've been looking at the color tone of different scenes. Like there's some scenes everything's yellow. You've got the yellow taxis. Suddenly the girl walking across screen is wearing a yellow dress, and there's yellow. There's a theme that is actually thought through depending on what the emotion is that they're trying to put through on the film. And you do notice those as an audience, but when everything's higgledy-piggledy, you kind of go, well, no one actually thought about that, and what about the rest of it?
Now, I'm wondering, George, do you notice it as an audience, or do you notice it because you're in the film industry and you notice the work that went in, the effort in the background?
I'm hearing from other family members that wouldn't be exposed to me so much saying about these comments. So they do notice and they do pick up on it. And I think is an important part of that kind of process.
It is. And it's subliminal as well,
Yeah.
They don't realize it. Like there was a great program on Sky Atlantic. I think it was called Unforgotten, a series with Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant. But the production value on anything that's there is excellent. But I remember, like, it's set in New York City, Manhattan or whatever. And you got a lot of these shots where it looks like it's maybe up, 6 or 7 stories up. And the main character, Nicole, she's coming out of the school. Now, everybody is, 9:30 in the morning or whatever it is. Everybody is wearing any shade of black, black puffer jackets, black overcoats, black suits, black this. And in every scene that she's in, she's wearing like this long crushed velvet coat that is kind of like an avocado color, or it's another one she was wearing was like a rust brown. And it doesn't matter if the shot is in Central Park and she's going for a walk, chatting to whoever it is, because she's wondering, did her husband actually have this affair or murder that man or whatever? It just stands out. And I said, that's brilliant. Like that. Yeah. They didn't go into a shop and buy that coat. They had to make that because this was whatever the designer decided. This is how we get her to stand out in particular. And it was really effective.
I think I saw that program, and I remember the one thing I do remember about is all the coats she was wearing, these fabulous long coats.
Yeah, down to her ankles, which makes her look very tall, as well.
That's it. Now, how the hell did Nicole Kidman get into this episode? I don't even know. Yeah. And even you, Grant, another one of my sort of lookalikes. I know when he's a bit younger, but no, where we're at now is the strange thing is,
did you look like Nicole Kidman at one point then? Because that comment you just now made
that's my alter ego, George. My alter ego is Nicole. I'm a bit of a kid man, all right. But actually, that's exactly what I am. I'm a child man. I never grew up. I'm stuck in the Peter Pan syndrome. I'm immature. I'm reckless. I put into conversations. I don't give you any airtime. But that's me. And you just have to put up with it. George will edit out afterwards and post. But as we say. But Gerry, I'm coming back to Dublin Crust because I'm curious now and you may not let it slip out or otherwise. Are you going to be in the band or are you in the background? Do you have a main part or just eternal? Are you just there? Or are you in the production team as well? You're in front of the camera, behind the camera, you're fucking everywhere. You're the elusive Pimpernel.
Primarily, my role is a character called Ian, and I'm a record company owner.
He's the producer.
So I'm actually Scottish in this, and I come over, for this reunion gig that's going to take place. And my regret is that I didn't sign this band when they were on the cusp of being something. So I'm coming back maybe to see if some deal could be done again. So
very very reminiscent of the Commitments there, Terry.
It is, yeah. It's sort of Commitments, combined with Train Spotting and various other things.
Yeah.
But it is a music. It's a good feel thing. It's
not a musical though. It's going to be a good soundtrack. It's not that. Is it a musical-ish in the sense of the band to be playing their stuff?
Well, without giving too many details away, it's probably. Have you seen Yesterday?
That's excellent. About the guy to do with who
suddenly wakes up and nobody can remember the Beatles music except for him. It's absolutely brilliant, But that's not. I mean, technically, that's not a musical because it's not done in a musical style. It's just that somebody's gigging using that music, and you get to hear it and laugh about it, which I think is really quite good. And again, looking at that film, we were talking about the production design a short time ago. You can see that production design through that. So I'm just conscious that I know that Baz didn't talk too much about the production, so we don't want to give too much.
We wouldn't let him. That was the whole point.
No, I think he didn't. I think we also have to be careful as well for the same kind of reason. So that's quite. But I mean, are you? You didn't get to say, are you involved in the production side of that, or are you not involved in the production side of that?
In a minor way, but I am down there I will be in the production credits. As I said, I've been helping with casting some of the roles because I've actually met quite a lot of actors in the last few years.
Yeah.
So I did assist to cast 3 of those roles. But anything else, from my own filmmaking experience that I can bring, I will, because everything aside from, people given money to fund, particularly as the post-production costs are the ones that you really want to hit with this one. I'll be doing whatever I can, talking to whoever, beg, steal, borrow on behalf of this, because I don't want this to end up in one of those things. It would have been great if.
It could have been, would have been, should have been.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I think that's really good when you've got the collaboration between like-minded people, because I know that from doing a couple of projects myself, if you don't have the support of others around you to keep you, especially through the editing process, because most people enjoy the fun of being on set, which for about 4 weeks or 3 days, depending on which member of the cast you're in. But when it comes to the edit, that could be several years. Not because, especially if you're in a low budget sort of production, because the only time you can fit it in is occasionally here and there. And you've got to sustain yourself through that process to actually believe in the film that you're actually working on. Now, I'm saying that as with experience of having a 12-year-old film that I'm still trying to finish because of life has intervened in the middle of it. And I had another film come in that was like, I call it the cuckoo film, that basically robbed my time I was putting into this other film, and in the end didn't go where I wanted it to go, which was very kind of frustrating because it went in slightly different. So you have those things turning around and hitting you. One of the things I'm interested in is, you were saying that in 2016 you suddenly took up full-time acting. What gave you the sense of, right, I'm now at that point? What changed your mind from what you were doing? Or what opportunities arose to give you that sense that this is where the journey I want to go on?
Well, it wasn't planned to happen then, really. What happened was, I said, when I left school, I ended up working as a telecoms technician. And then I started up a part-time business maybe in the 90s, vending machines. That became a full-time business for at least a decade. And then I kind of exited out of that, sold what I could to a competitor who'd always been asking me, listen, can I buy your sites? And I was kind of in between, like, this is summer 2015. What am I going to do? So, I was still doing bits of work like sailing instructor and various other bits. Then in 2016, like, I would do anything, for instance, that I could to earn a living. But I ended up thinking about, I wouldn't mind doing acting again, but I didn't say right now, this minute, I'm going to do it. But in 2015, I went and I did a self-taping course in Bow Street because somebody had said to me, if you want to go on screen, this is what you need to do. Yeah. And so I did that. And from then into 2016, then my first short that I did was student short in May, I think, 2016. And then as I got that and a few other bits, then I started looking for an agent. And then I decided, this is what I'm doing. And at the time now, I didn't announce at home that this is really what I'm doing. I was kind of looking for other work and other opportunities. But I wasn't, so eventually. So
I keep on telling my wife, no.
Yeah,
I'm not so sitting here talking in a room. I'm networking. But no. She said, can you go out and make a film sometime in the next 2 years, please? So, and then we might believe you. But so the great thing about, I'm hearing, you got the bug, and not the one we know we're talking about these days.
Yeah.
You've been hooked. You're 40, 50 in now of shorts. Actually, you're about to make the feature jump. In the sense of the big, that's what we're hearing. You'll do shorts all day long because it's nice to be involved and nice to get back. The pay won't be, I'm sure, as great as a bigger something else. But on recognition, now again, you're in the shorts. If they get their awards, there's a chance of different recognition there. But are you aspiring to have a part in it and repeat it? Something? Do you want to be on EastEnders? Are you aspiring to have a part that is in a big blockbuster or something, but it's more than a couple of lines?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean that's the whole. There is a progression as an actor. I mean, you're not going to be, even if you look the part and sound the part. Like, if there's a major, like, say you take any of the major TV dramas that were there recently, say like Kin, for instance, and Aidan Gillen had major role in that. So if I'm in that same category age-wise as him or Kieran Hines, if I haven't been in something where I've progressed along and I have maybe a significant part in one episode in something, or had a role where I've been, the police inspector who could have been in 4 of these episodes and actually had an interesting story to go with it, no one in the commercial world is going to take a chance on me and entrust me with a main role like that, and the thing becomes a commercial flop. I mean, as you know yourself in the business, the reason, every production, when they're getting money, they have to have a name or two. So, someone who's been in Game of Thrones, Peaky Blinders, blah, 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 well, they're going to be marketable to the money people who are going to say, well, there's a better chance that we can sell this on to whoever or in what sort of streaming platform. You'll get your money back, blah, 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 and they'll all be happy. So, but I have ambitions to be doing that. Absolutely. I mean, that's the reason I'm doing this,
I'm going to let you know, I joined Movie Extras there about 2 years ago. I didn't join. I went, myself and the young lad went up, got the photographs taken. We paid the £100, whatever the heck it was. He promised us some work. Never heard. COVID kicked in. But that was the end of it. Now, except for one little email says, oh, you're being picked. Would you? No, I was going, brilliant. Geez, I haven't done anything. They're sending me out. I've got a part. No, I didn't get a part. They're just saying they're going to use my ugly. Is it okay if they use my ugly mugshot for a mugshot on the detective board in the background? So I got £50. I think I could have been a mass murderer or something on a board, probably in Ken in the background. That's as close as I got.
I've been there too. Well, actually, speaking of mugshots, I think Dublin Crust will be like independent feature number 10 that I'd be involved in. And because, as George even said, I mean, there's, I'd say most of these feature films that I've been in so far, and they've been started from 2018, maybe 2019, like half of them are still in post-production because they are being funded slowly and bit by bit. One of them actually had a small role. It was a very big production, but it ran into financial problems. But anyway, I can't go there. But recently we did have a screening of a feature film called Dredges, which is a Dublin crime thing. And myself, another actor, George Bracebridge, who's also baldy-headed, we were two old school criminals. So you never know. With a bit of luck, that might get a bit of mileage somewhere and, get seen. So, oh, yeah, he could fit that role.
Yeah, well, I'm also hearing, Gerry, is you did about 20 or 30 of them. 15 of them could be stuck in post on the basis of what happened in the meantime. And they could all come out at the same time, roughly about 16 months from now. And you're fecking everywhere. I won't be able to look anywhere without seeing your ugly mug because you'll be in everything going from here till Christmas.
Well, speaking of network, the annoying thing right now because of COVID is that a lot of film festivals have been online. They haven't taken place. And one of them that was supposed to take place in October is the Richard Harris Film Festival down in Limerick. Now, it is going to be online, but I don't know when. I thought it was going to be in November. But as it happens, there's 2 feature films and 2 short films that I have parts in that are going to be in that. So that would be the absolute perfect opportunity for me to go down and meet people. And by the time it's on next year, I possibly won't even be in anything to select it next year, So the whole thing about networking and talking to people, I mean, that's how you get along acting wise and producer wise as well, because you meet some like-minded people and they chat to you, and then someone emails you, 6 months later, actually, I'm doing this thing. I wonder, would you play this part? And you say, great. And that's happened to me a couple of times. I mean, without having to audition, someone says, okay, you look the part.
From the producing perspective, are you being asked to produce in the sense of organize things and set things up, or are you being asked to find money for projects?
Primarily, it's the organizing and setting things up because, pitching for funding to Screen Ireland and things like that. That is not my skill set right now. But ultimately, with a few projects that get off the ground, my name attached to them. And again, when I talk to the right people who know more than I do and I can learn off them, well, that will be the step. But, right now, it's a bit like I said with the acting thing, there's no point in you can aim high, but you just can't pitch yourself up at a certain level where you're not going to be considered. So you need to, whether it's your show reel, a portfolio of work, whatever it is, you need to build that up. And that's where the journey is going right now.
I'm going to argue a little bit in the sense that sometimes it does work that way. And people put themselves in the box that they say, well, I'm here, I'm not there. Where actually, if you have the little bit of attitude, the LPMA, you go, No. I'm going to pitch beyond that, and I'm going to aim for the stars, hit the bloody moon. And someone's going to get it and see through it. Now, it might be you haven't got a skill set, but you can get it. You can do a bit of training, but if you're not asking, you're not receiving. So sometimes that crowd is smaller because actually it's like putting your CV out to a job. I read some business like job specs and I go, that's not me. And it turns out it was my job spec. You've got to go beyond the men. You've got to pitch beyond. You can't, if you put yourself in the pool where everybody is, then that's who you're competing against. So I think that's what we've done. We've stepped out. We're not asking permission. We're making our own show. We're just going to go out and bloody well do it. We're going to hopefully learn and grow as we go. And when we get there, we'll be at a different level from the get-go.
Yeah.
I think you do have to realize, though, from the perspective that we are actually still following that same curve, even though we're doing what we're doing. We've I think everybody here has basically decided, look, I'm not going to follow what I'm told to do, because I was thinking about this earlier on today, and even when I was at film school, that we're all being led that we have to do as we're told. We have to go through the system. We have to do this, that, and the other. And quite often you get caught into that, and we've actually rebelled against that more recently. But it's taken that experience of being in there, that long hole, to suddenly realize, well, actually, what do we need to do that's a bit different so we can get out there and meet other people and start to do the things. Because in what we're doing at the moment, it isn't that we're not following a unique line. We're actually doing something that other people have, and we just want to make sure that it's a successful way of achieving what we need to achieve and build that confidence as we're going along. We do need the attitude that we're getting, because otherwise, you'd fold very quickly. But it is a case of just pushing forward and saying, look, well, I can do this, so I'm going to help you do X, Y, and Z. And once we've done that, we'll build and do something else. It's setting those structures in place so that you can actually achieve the goals that you want to achieve. And I think that's the important part.
Actually, like you touched on something there, George. Now, again, it's probably mental health issues sort of type territory in a sense. Gerry, it's like you said at the very beginning of the show. We're putting ourselves up there on the stage. And it can be open to ridicule or anything else. And it could be self-confidence, and you need affirmation from others to be confident. Do you think it's you need to be very, very strong, or it's not for the frail and a weak of heart, what you're doing?
You got to be brave. And some, I think what drives you is that, the people who are successful in everything in life are the people who come across as really confident. They can walk into a room, doesn't matter what's going on, and they command the space. Okay. So I'm not one of those people by nature. Most of us aren't. So you have to overcome, it's a fear. But if you really want to do something, whatever it is, say you wanted to become the basketball player, but you were afraid of talking to coaches or other players, you were really intimidated, but you had the skill, you would have to walk into a room, into a hall to put yourself up for a trial. Whereas, that would be the focus of attention would be in you. And if you were a shy person, you would be, going red in the face and ultimately petrified. And it'd be much easier to walk away, go home to your house, tell your mother, no, they changed the day of the trials. It's next week, because you were afraid to go in the door. So I think, if you got to have ambition, you have to be brave, because, you're going outside your comfort zone. My comfort zone is I could spend the rest of my life just floating around making short films and, having a part-time job to pay the bills and doing that. But no, I want to reach the maximum potential that I have. And I know I do have I'm lucky enough that I have that kind of skill as an actor. I'm not someone who can sit at the piano and play by ear. I don't have that. I can't pick up a guitar. There's lots of things I can't do, but I know acting is something that I can do. And with plenty of practice and the right opportunity, I can do it well. So that's why I push myself.
Now, there's an interesting thing. I'm trying to remember the beginning of the conversation. Were you an actor at the beginning and you stopped and went off to work for 30 years and you came back to what your passion was and is? Like, you were always an actor. George talks about the I am. If you're an actor now, you always were. It's just you've given yourself permission now to actually pursue it because you feel more confident to do it. Or do you think, I'm just wondering, did you put it off for 30 years because you were afraid of it and now you're confident to move ahead?
A very practical thing. In between the time I went and studied drama school. I went working away, got a mortgage, got married.
Life, yeah.
And then what happened, I also had interesting, there's two things, just so I'll come back to them. I remember at one stage when I was in the Brendan Smith Theatre Academy, and we put on a show in what used to be then the John Player Theatre. And my mother and father came along to see it. And a day or two later, my father says to me, well, you weren't much use. Well, I was kind of taken aback by this. But what, of course, was my mother explained to me maybe a couple of years later, no, your father didn't want you to give up your good, paid, pensionable job. And that's why he said you were no good. But I remember going for an audition. Well, two things happened. RT were looking for some radio players back around then. This was kind of late 80s. And I managed to send in my cassette tape, which I did. I got called for an audition, got shortlisted, but they only took on two people, Conor Mullen and Anne-Marie Horan. But if I got that job, I would have been straight in there as a full-time actor. But then I also went for an audition around that time. Roddy Doyle had a play called Brown Bread. Paul Mercer directed, went up to the SFX Hall as it was, auditioned, didn't get the part. He wrote me a lovely letter, which I still kept. And that was it. I kind of decided, I can't exist just doing this. I wouldn't have been let. I would, Rosemary, my wife, would not have let me anyway give up everything. So I literally had to put it. The practical nature of it was, if I was single, living in a flat, didn't give a shit, I probably could have pursued it. But something, I think I probably would have given it up, like a lot of my contemporaries at the time ultimately moved on to do something else. I mean, one of them is now a presenter of the arts program in RT, Sean Rocks. We trained together back in the College of Music. He had quite a career in the Gate and the Abbey, but he probably found, well, I'm not getting paid 52 weeks of the year doing this. And, he went off a slightly different direction. But I think I'm probably enjoying it more now. And my voice is going here a bit.
See, I let you speak. That's the problem. I would have kept your voice.
No. All right. Well, look, folks, we've reached that point now in the show where we have to wrap up, unfortunately. We've been going on for quite some time. It's been an amazing session that we've been talking to somebody else, Gerry here, who has had a similar sort of lifestyle to what we've had. We've had to go ahead and pay the bills. And now we've got to a certain point in life where those dreams and ambitions that we've had, we can now enact and become reality for ourselves, because we've done the responsible thing, but now we can see this little part of life will allow us to do those things that we wanted to do. The other great thing that we've also encountered is that Gerry is talking about, and I know that myself and Garvin have also done this in our lives, is this continuous lifelong education aspect, which is really important because we can always keep on learning. And old dogs can learn new tricks, believe it or not. We keep on going and going and going. And we look at different opportunities that actually arise. But I think what's lovely about the story that Gerry's been telling us is that aim for the stars, because, go for where you can. Don't limit yourself to what you think you can do. Push ahead, push through those barriers. And what Garvin and I have been talking about somewhere along the line is that those fears that you have, don't let them stop you from going where you want to go. And you never know what skills you've actually learned. If you then start to implement those skills, you could be doing what Gerry's doing, which is starting to produce as well as act and see opportunities where you thought there hadn't been ones before. So again, Gerry, thanks very much for joining us today. Any last words you'd like to do before I hand over to Garvin there?
No, it's been a pleasure talking to the pair of you. So yeah, just keep an eye out. You'll see me in film festivals near you. And I look forward to coming back and chatting to you in the future at some stage.
Oh, that'd be brilliant. So, Garvin, your last words.
Well, I'm taking a couple of words from what you just said, and I heard we were all responsible in the past, so it's time to be irresponsible in the present. And you're saying there were a bunch of old dogs, or actually about to be a bunch of irresponsible old dogs trying to learn some new tricks. So that's what I think the roundup on my side is. I want to learn a couple of new tricks. So watch out for Trixie here. We'll be back soon enough. Take care.
Thanks for watching, everybody, and look forward to seeing you next week. Bye for now.
Hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and click on the bell for notifications.